know the cost of housing is so important to you. If inflation keeps coming down, mortgage rates will come down as well, and the Fed acknowledges that. But I'm not waiting. I want to provide an annual tax credit that will give Americans $400 a month for the next 2 years as mortgage rates come down, to put toward their mortgages when they buy their first home or trade up for a little more space.
Let's talk about it. You probably heard during President Biden's State of the Union speech his thoughts on the state of the housing market. But did what he say really move the needle? Should you care? Is it a political stunt? I mean, the election's coming down the road. Well, I'm going to read you what was put out by his chief national economic advisor, Lael Brainerd, and kind of let you formulate your own thoughts, because typically the further you get away from the source of the information, a lot more slanted that information gets. So some of the topics discussed were solutions to some of the affordability challenges in the market, unlocking the housing market. We all heard about those golden handcuffs for folks that have the super low rates that don't want to sell their home, making rent more affordable, and making refinancing easier, because a lot of those junk fees prevent folks from refinancing. I think that's very important. And last but not least, increasing the supply of housing, because that's the most important cog in this stuck wheel that is the housing market. Before we get into that, if this is your first time hearing the sound of my voice, my name is David. I have a background as a mortgage underwriter, a mortgage lender, and a realtor. So yes, that is the entire home buying process. I've also purchased multiple homes myself, but most importantly, I've helped hundreds of people just like you buy their first home in real life. I don't just talk about it on the internet. Let's go get those keys. Welcome back to House Rich, the first time homebuyer show where we provide you actionable steps in layman terms to buy your first home. Let's get right into the remarks by National Economic Advisor Lael Brainerd on President Biden's bold plan for housing. Quick correction before we go any further. I heard the name Lael and I just thought it was a black guy. Maybe I've only known black guys named Lael. I may even be pronouncing that wrong, but when I looked up her picture to put it on the YouTube channel, I found out it was a white lady. So I'm going to incorrectly refer to her as he for this entire episode. My apologies. Right off the break, here's what he's got to say. During the State of the Union, President Biden proposed the boldest housing plan in a generation, a plan that would lower housing costs for renters and home buyers and expand access to quality, affordable housing. The president called on Congress to support the construction of 2 million additional homes, lower the cost for renters, and unlock the housing market for first-time home buyers and families seeking to trade up or downsize. Now let's see if this proposal really does that by first tackling the supply issue. One of the most misinformed takes online, I think at this point folks are just lying for clicks, is that, especially folks that claim to be into the data and numbers, is that somehow this housing market is going to crash. One of the biggest things back in 2008, 2005, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, during that time frame, was the huge glutton of supply. We are nowhere near that inventory now. So President Biden says he's putting $185 billion with the B in his housing budget for the fiscal year 2025. That starts on October 1st. I had to look that up. Going towards helping increasing that inventory. So, and he talks about this like in 2006, new construction homes peaked at 2 million. This declined all the way to 585,000 in 2011, and it's been slowly declining. Like, new homes are not being built anymore. And of course, COVID exacerbated that because of all the supply chain issues. There were less homes built, less supply, still the same demand, and that's why home prices skyrocketed. He says construction over that decade skewed to higher value units rather than the starter homes needed for first-time home buyers and workforce housing. For example, just 5% of all newly completed units in 2021 had asking rents that were affordable to a household with a median renter income. And I've pointed this out a couple of times, but the starter home is disappearing. I remember last year seeing a stat that like in 2020, the number of homes that sold for less than $300,000, it was like 30-something%. Then in 2021, it was like 20-something%, low 20s. Then in 2022, it was 11%. And then most recently, I saw a number from Realtor.com that now in 2023, 42% of homes, but wait for it, sold for less than $400,000. So that $300,000 stat just disappeared. I guess it's reported somewhere, but the folks that were reporting the 300K home are now reporting data on the 400K homes. I'm a realtor in Dallas and would love to help you reach your goals of home ownership. So click the link in the description and just schedule a call no matter where you are on your journey. Not in Dallas? No worries, I can help connect you with a vetted realtor in your local jurisdiction as well. And feel free to share with friends, family, and foes. Everyone gets love. And this is very important because you'll see a lot of folks running around talking about, hey, I saw a home was slashed for $400,000, or I saw that homes in this certain area are down 10%. Well, are they down at the bottom of the market? The answer is no. I give the example of here in the Dallas market. I know real estate is local, but looking for a home in the low 200,000s, and we did find one, but we saw there were homes with 30 offers, 19 offers, 16 offers, 17 offers. It is a madhouse at the bottom of the market. And honestly, the reason we got that home for the low 200s was that it fell out of contract for somebody else. I'd had a good relationship with the realtor, and fortunately my buyer was able to swoop in. But it's very, very hard out here below $300,000 in most major cities. So once again, to combat that, that is why President Biden laid out an ambitious set of budget proposals that would build and preserve 2 million additional homes over the next decade. So if you're doing the math, it's okay, 2 million divided by 10, that's about 200,000 homes. In 2022, there were about 5 million and change homes sold, and in 2023, there were about 4 million and change homes sold. So that's a very, very low percentage of those homes. But once again, most importantly, the number is the homes at the bottom of the market. Next, let's talk about those golden handcuffs. Those are folks that bought homes really prior to 2022 that have rates in like the 4s, 3s, and some in the high 2s that are like, hey, it doesn't really make any sense for me to sell my home with a 3% interest rate, because if I just bought the equivalent home, it's probably $50,000 more and a 3% higher rate. Like, I'll just stay in the home I'm in right now. Even folks downsizing, it's like, it's a smaller home, but it's maybe the same price now and the rate's higher, so my payment's higher. It doesn't even make sense for me to downsize. So this is how President Biden plans to address that. The president has called on Congress to pass a mortgage relief tax credit that will provide first-time home buyers with up to $10,000. This amounts to around $400 per month for 2 years, the equivalent of reducing the mortgage rate 1.5% for 2 years on the median home. The mortgage relief credit would help around 3.5 million middle-class families purchase their first home over the next decade. So a lot of the feedback I've seen is that isn't a lot. What if I live in Cali? What if I live in a high cost of living area? Well, unfortunately, there's no scenario where any president could put out a proposal that will help every single person buy a home. Like, that's just not realistic. So if you're in Cali, yeah, $400 may be peanuts. But once again, the comparison is to nothing, not a fantastical scenario where somebody can just raise a wand or wave a wand and somehow home prices drop by 10% in your area. President Biden's budget also includes a first-generation down payment assistance program, which will provide households without generational wealth with $25K on average to afford the down payment to achieve home ownership. I try to get details on this. I'm not really sure what it means or what the criteria is. Is it your parents haven't bought a home? Are you a minority? Like, how do they track this? So as soon as I get more details on this proposal, I'll probably do a separate video on this altogether. Let's jump back to the lock-in effect one more time. To unlock the starter home inventory and allow middle-class families to move up the housing ladder and empty nesters to right size, the president is calling on Congress to provide a 1-year tax credit of up to $10,000 to middle-class families to sell their starter home to another owner-occupant, so not a renter, an investor, a flipper, a owner-occupant, and this is the seller's mortgage relief credit. So once again, getting more details on this, I don't think it's like a dollar for dollar thing where like if you owe $10,000 in taxes, you owe none. I think it's going to reduce the tax bracket. So your overall income, if you make $100K, now you're only taxed on $90K based on this new proposal. Next, let's talk about refinancing, because if you've ever refinanced, one thing that catches a lot of people off guard is there are a lot of fees. It's almost literally the same amount of fees as when you purchase a home minus the down payment. So sometimes folks will be like, okay, I got a 5% rate. This is back when rates were lower and a lot of folks were refinancing. And now rates are 4.75%. So you think, okay, I'm dropping my rate 0.25%. This makes sense for me to refinance. But after you add up all the lender fees, a lot of times it's the same or higher payment, so it doesn't make sense for that person to refinance. Here's a potential solution. The Federal Housing Finance Agency has approved a pilot program to save households on average $750 by no longer requiring them to purchase lender's title insurance when they're refinancing their mortgage. Reducing closing costs on refinancing will enable more households to refinance as rates continue to fall, unlocking substantial savings for first-time home buyers. So from a high level, the title insurance is basically the lender doing a background check to make sure that the home that you bought has no title issues, like nobody's going to come down the line and be like, I'm actually the heir to this property because my great-grandmother Esther actually deeded it to me, but I was traveling in Europe and they couldn't find me. So the person that sold you the home, they had no right to sell the home. It's my home. So the title insurance protects that. It does also basic things like make sure that the person that's selling you the home, they own the home in general. It's not some scam or something of that nature. So this eliminates the need for that. You may be thinking, why would I get rid of that? But here's a scenario. Like if you purchased a home 3 years ago, they did all that title insurance. So they're not waiving it for a purchase, but now you've owned the home for the last 3 years. So any of the current title issues would be your issue. So like any liens on the property for like, let's say somebody put a pool in and you didn't pay the pool guy. Well, that is your lien. The title insurance won't protect you for that because that is an accurate lien. So that's what it looks to eliminate is the need for that. And of course, it's optional now. So you can still get that title insurance if you, for some reason, feel the need to. Let's talk about relief for renters because one big issue is if you're renting and the rents are so high, you can't even save for a down payment. Now, the administration has already secured rental assistance for over 100,000 additional low-income households through the Housing Choice Voucher Program, guaranteeing them affordable rents. The president's budget proposes expanding rental assistance to hundreds of thousands of additional households. So they're looking to help even more folks with rental assistance because one of the biggest transitions from renting to owning is, hey, I ain't got no money for a down payment. They're also looking to help cap rents. The administration recently proposed to cap annual rent increases in low-income housing tax credit units to between 5 and 10% annually, which, if finalized, will prevent unmanageable large single rent increases in over 2 million households. Because I always point out one of the biggest bonuses of owning a home is, for the most part, you can lock in your living expense long term. When you rent, your landlord can just say, hey, rent was $2,000, but I see there's a lot of demand. And there are things that go up like taxes, insurance, so forth. But now it's $3,500 because Amazon moved their headquarters into the city and now there's more high-paying workers. So now this property is just worth more, which pushes out a lot of people. Now they either have to come out of pocket for more to maybe stay where they want to stay or move either further away from their jobs. Here's another way to incentivize builders to build those affordable homes. He says, there's a gap between how much it costs to build a new house and how much households on the lower end of the income spectrum can afford to pay, which is why tax credits have been a critical support for private construction in the affordable housing market for nearly 4 decades. One thing I like to point out is that builders are business people. Every huge builder isn't D.R. Horton or Beazer or whoever the big builder is in the area. There are a lot of smaller builders. Lastly, the president has also called on Congress to pass the bipartisan neighborhood housing tax credit, which will lead to the construction and preservation of over 400,000 starter homes in communities throughout the country. In many communities, low property values and high construction costs means that it costs more to build single-family homes than the developer could earn, even though increasing the supply of affordable for-sale homes would bring important value to the community overall. So once again, the builders are not in charge of making sure the community is this or that. That's really how the city's zoning and planning committees work. So what are your thoughts on that? Are there some good proposals? Is it much ado about nothing? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. But as always, buy land because, as you can see, it's becoming less and less affordable. And rumor has it they're not making any more of it.